Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes, and welcome back to the YoVideogames podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all those generous patrons who've kept us going for over 326.
326. Yeah.
I don't want to be wrong, but dang, it's that many.
Math. That's like 7 years.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I feel like everybody knows we held off for a day on this episode, so they know what's coming. But as always, if you're interested in becoming a patron, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Dude of the week is Rocker1104. You get to be the patron of the week for a State of Play episode.
Yay! State of play, state of delay.
State of delay. Well, it's only... How many games got delayed?
Well, definitely Forspoken did.
Forspoken did, yeah, but that's the only one that I know of that definitely got delayed.
Yeah, I don't think anything else. Most of the stuff was actually a lot of new. It was actually a lot of new announcements, so I guess not really.
I would
not
say
really a state of
like
delay. But...
half, right? Half of everything they showed was brand new. No, well, Returnal Ascension is just a DLC, right? So a little under half, yeah. But before we get into all that, we have a sponsor to thank. Now, if you're absolutely brand new to the show, then you're going to be like, oh, Manscaped, they're the perfect sponsor. We thought so too. That's why we said yes. But I wanted to shout out something that kind of is, I mean, just silly as hell. My trimmers for my beard broke earlier this week. And so I, no shit.
Lawnmower?
I did. I used the lawnmower on my fucking face. I don't think it's intended for that, but pubes are tougher than beard hair, I think, right?
That's
They're
right.
I don't know, but it worked fairly well. I don't think it's intended for that, and I don't know if I dulled my blades or something, but the Lawnmower 4.0, good for the balls, good for the face. Actually pretty gentle on the face for obvious reasons. But we're big fans of that, and we're big fans of the Crop Preserver. Those are our two favorite products from the Performance Package, but the Performance Package comes with shirt, boxers. I mean, you have the Preserver for keeping your junk from getting all hot and gross, and then you have the Reviver for a quick spritz.
Quick
like
spritz.
a spray version.
If you need a marine shower on your two little soldiers.
A whore's bath, as they say.
Okay.
But the cool thing that I didn't... that we don't often call out is the nose trimmers and the ear trimmers that comes with the Performance Package. They work pretty good. I usually fucking hate nose trimmers because they hurt. I don't know if I just have like sensitive nose hairs or something.
Well, right. For a company called Manscaped, their products are awfully gentle.
Yeah. I'm a sweet baby boy and I need to be pampered. It's self-care. But if you're interested in checking out the Performance Package or any of their products, really, go to manscaped.com. Use code YoVG, all caps, for 20% off and free shipping worldwide. And now we can talk about the state of play. What is the state of play? It's
right,
about
now that we got the state of your balls out of the way, we can go to the state of play.
Well, I got to be honest. Manscaped helps the state of play of your balls.
That's right. It does help your state of play with your state of Anyways, so it was a short one. So like they announced it like really quickly, like, hey, in like 2 days we're gonna do a state of play.
And the build up to the countdown timer was like half the goddamn stream.
Yes, more than half probably. And the interesting thing was it was only 20 minutes, and it was Japanese game focused, which is interesting because Sony hates Japan. I mean, they haven't done anything on their end really to like keep Japan Studios. I mean, Japan Studios is gone. It's just Team Asobi now.
Oh, I guess that's fair, yeah.
So yeah, like on their end, it downsized and then kind of like rebirthed itself as Team Asobi. There's been some rumblings that they're trying to build up, they're trying to rebuild or actually build up another, studio over there or something. But they're mostly reliant on Japanese third-party support, which they've kind of had lock, stock, and key for 25, 30 years almost, ever since the PlayStation 1, which is getting close to its 30th birthday in Japan, at least, late 94.
Good God.
So the crazy interesting thing though there is that, and we've been saying it for a while, is that the console market's dead in Japan. Like, and it's not even necessarily because no one cares. I mean, they don't. I mean, there's definitely a lethargy or a sort of apathy in Japan towards console gaming as a whole. But they do sell PS5s when they get them. You can find PS5s in Japan for like massive, you can find them for scalper prices. But
Wow.
you can't. They sell most of the PS5s. They sell all the PS5s they get. They just don't get a lot. But as far as like PS4 games go, and more importantly, software sales, that's the real important key here, is that like PS4 never really took off in Japan. I mean, obviously, like they've sold plenty by now, but like never took off. And
More
the
than
software,
the Xbox did.
Well, sure. But like software sales have been just pretty much almost non-existent for a lot of the Japanese developed console only games. They're mobile territory over there. They like their mobile games, and
because the commute is the only time that they can play.
Really, yeah, and and I as like I said, and after being there, I get it. Their train system's amazing. And again, yeah, like it's kind of like the only decent time they have to play games is on the train, and frankly, with how social and how you just don't spend a lot of time at home for two reasons. One being, the crazy workaholic work hours over there,
and no space.
And no space, and yeah, that's kind of the other one, is just like no space. But more to the point, when I say no space, is because they kind of expect you to be out. Like it's like when people think about urban living, like it actually is kind of true over there. Like you're not really expected to be like, sitting at home on your at your desktop, doing nothing, like us. But it's just, yeah, you have no space, so like there's really not much in the way there for you to make your own meals, because frankly you live in a city that's very dense, very vertically built, and there's food and bars and eateries and things everywhere, and good food too. Like not even just kind of like, oh, it's all just McDonald's and KFC. No, I mean, like it's,
well, I know like a lot of Japanese apartments will just be like a single room with a bathroom, and they don't even have kitchens in a lot of them and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're talking tiny studios for most of them.
But they do. I mean, they have single family homes and shit all over the place, just not nearly as common as the apartment, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and Japan's an interesting thing, because many of the countrysides where you would find the homes are disappearing. Like so many people were just moving to Tokyo or Osaka, or
Mega City One,
maybe Kyoto. Yeah, like it was becoming that.
Wow.
And there was a small sort of resurgence of people moving out to the countryside because of the pandemic, where people were like, bro, I will give you my farm. Just like, I will get, like, because no one's there kind of thing. So people were getting like amazing deals to move, to just please take this home, take this property off my hands. And some people, you have to have the fucking appetite for it, right? But some people were like, fuck it, I'm going to go become a farmer.
I mean, I kind of don't blame them. Farming's fucking recession proof. Like, you'll always have food on your table.
Yeah, there are some people who are just like, fuck it, I'm just going to go become a farmer. It costs them almost nothing to do. Well, I mean, it costs them, but like the house costs them almost nothing to get the house for it.
Yeah, there's an Instagram account called like Cheap Old Houses Japan or Cheap Houses Japan or something like that. And like you'll just countryside homes, some beautiful homes, but old homes, obviously. So like, they'll have the old school Japanese kitchen where it's literally like a pit, and a fire pit and stuff like that. But it's up in the mountains and stuff like that. Like beautiful homes, for like $40,000, US dollars. So I'm not.
Yeah. Like exactly what our parents paid for a home.
Yeah. Fuck. Or our grandparents at least.
Or bro, my, I think my grandparents' home, which was built custom, they bought the lot and paid for the house to be, you know, whatever. They bought the home and then it was built on it was a lot when they bought it, but it was going to be a home. It was like $10,000.
Fuck.
Yeah, it's worth like over $500,000 now. So
God damn it. I'm so tired. Just
that's not just that's just prices go up over time. No bull. Like
no, yeah, it's speculative too.
It's like 60, 65, 68 years. You know, it didn't go up like, you know, 100%. It went up like 10,000%.
Yeah.
Or 50,000% or something like that. I'm like, ah.
Speaking of 50,000% increase, 50,000% increase in the likelihood of raining dinosaurs tomorrow.
Okay, so that was the best game they showed at the State of Play, just to get this out of the way.
I'm sorry, is that the best? I mean, it's fun.
Exoprimal, and I'm not even that excited for it. This is what I also was going to say. I'm like, it was like, okay, cool, whatever.
I mean,
neat. I think some details came out afterwards. It is a multiplayer focused game. Here's my issue: is that how does Capcom handle it? Is it like Monster Hunter, where you're going to pay $60 for it, and pretty much most of all the updates are going to be free? You'll get like one big campaign update a year later, you know, for like $40 or whatever. Or is it going to be like, or what it should be, is it going to be like free to play, or even if it's not free, or is it going to be like, is it going to have a battle pass, and then is it going to have a whole store like within the game of microtransactions? You know, like.
I don't know. I mean, it's
basically what I'm
shooter.
saying is they can't charge $60 for this if you're going to have a battle pass and a cosmetic, you know, riddled store on top of it, where you have to spend all this extra money. Like, this game should be free to play if it's not going the Monster Hunter route. And I don't know that it will. I don't think Capcom's really done that, and I don't think they're.
Well, it looks more like a horde shooter than a Monster Hunter type.
So it should be like Aliens Fireteam Elite, where it was like $40.
Yeah,
you know, and or eventually came to Game Pass not too long after. Like,
yeah, we'll see. I mean, the thing is from the actual trailer, you don't see a ton of like enemy variety or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole lot of like, you know, pseudo raptors just being like. I mean, I
dumped out of the sky. It's amazing. Yeah,
I love the bonkersness of it, where it's just kind of like you've got this vaguely normal looking city, completely crazy biotech, you know, futuristic sci-fi suits, and then these fucking orb portals appear and shits dinosaurs.
I love how they flop though.
Yeah, flop just like and not just like a bunch of. I mean, like fucking like an anthill's amount of ants just shitting.
Yeah, no, that was probably the best visual in the game. Like, I don't know how interested I am in this game. Like, I'm not.
This was in part of the Capcom leaks. Unfortunately, like we have. It was kind of something that kind of got forgotten about because it had like a project name.
Yeah, and everybody thought it was going to be some sort of Dino Crisis thing.
It's funny because they're like, "Oh, we have the human crisis and blah blah blah," and then here's Regina. Psych, it's not Regina. It's some chick with like an accent. And like, what the fuck were they doing? Like, it almost feels a little trolly what they did, where they're like, here's this game, it's got dinosaurs, and we talk about a crisis going on, and then there's like this chick in like this futuristic bodysuit with like, you know, short red haircut, and it's not Regina, and it's not Dino Crisis, it's a multiplayer horde shooter. Give us the fucking money.
I wonder why they're so hesitant to bring back Dino Crisis, though.
Like maybe because they're like, okay, this is not a survival horror game. This is not a single player action game. It's a multiplayer horde mode live services.
Yeah, everything's got to be live services. That's right.
Live service title. So maybe they thought people would just be more pissed if it's like it's Dino Crisis, like
But
Dino
lives.
Crisis, Horde, or Dino Crisis Fire Team or something. Like if they called it something with that, but they put the name Dino Crisis on it. But then it's this multiplayer only focused live service title. Maybe they thought that would just go over worse. But it's almost kind of like, so why did you make a character look exactly like Regina then?
Look, they've got a very specific type in Japan, and that is her.
It's so weird how they went out of their way to make this character look exactly like Regina from Dino Crisis 1 and 2, but it's not.
What we really need is a fan update, like, the RE4 project, but for Dino Crisis.
Right?
Just fix that shit up, bro.
It's kind of a bummer for Dino Crisis fans because it's like you're not really getting Dino Crisis. There's really nothing Dino Crisis about this except dinosaurs.
Yeah, and I don't think they're trying to promise anything like Dino Crisis.
Right. So that's probably why it's not called Dino Crisis. Why did you make a character look so much like the main character from 1 and 2? I don't know.
It's a good character design, all right? You just you keep it. We got to see more of Ghostwire Tokyo. Cool.
Yeah, because it's about to come out. I didn't realize that it's coming out the same time as Kirby, which kind of sucks.
Are you're gonna pick Kirby over Ghostwire? I think you're gonna do it.
Yeah,
sounds like you're actually debating.
I did that Kirby demo's great. And what can I say?
Hey, look, if you're debating about whether or not to choose this AAA beautiful game or Kirby, you choose Kirby because you didn't love the AAA beautiful game to begin with. I think Johnny Depp said that. I think that's a quote from him.
Okay, it's Johnny Depp. Okay.
Yeah. So we should talk about I guess Forspoken. Well, all right, you want to talk about Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin?
I mean, they've kind of revealed that the lands of the game are all based on specific areas from every Final Fantasy. Go to the mountains from Final Fantasy 10, or this thing from Final Fantasy 4, or that thing from 13. I think there's a 13 land. I'm like, who got the unfortunate?
Well, it's just one long hallway.
Yeah,
and there's thump thump music.
There you go.
I feel like that's going to be fun for some people. I feel shitty because a lot of these games, I can recognize they're going to be cool. I don't care. The thing is, people are like, oh, Forspoken got delayed, but I feel like that wasn't a surprise. It looked a little rough to begin with, right?
Well, the game's about to come out. If you're talking about it'll look rough, early rough.
Yeah, it looked rough.
Well, the game's done and it's coming out in a week or two. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm talking about Forspoken. Forspoken.
We moved on from that. Sorry.
No. Final Fantasy looks good. Sorry, it was a transition that I didn't really mean to do, but I was like, there's a lot of games that I just. They did Final Fantasy Origins right into Forspoken. So yeah, they jumped in between. It was like they were trying to connect the two. I don't know why they would do that in a marketing.
Well, they were originally going to be coming out close with it, but now they're not. So Forspoken got delayed. Now, here's the thing that I want to say. It's interesting that with the official delay, they gave a day. It wasn't just to October, to the fall. October 11th. We are pushing it specifically to October 11th.
So do you think it was a marketing decision and not a development decision?
I think it was a development decision, but it was probably along the lines of we need to optimize this game. It's too chunky. And they're like, how long is this going to take? It'll take about 3-4 months. All right, fine. Let's go. Because I mean, they planned they have release days internally planned, fucking long time before we hear about it as a public. Long time before we hear about it. They know what day specifically they want it to be. They just don't tell us.
Yeah, I wonder how often that leads to problems because who picks the day it's due, really?
So it was interesting that they were really forthcoming about October 11th. I'm still on the fence about it. It's okay, Forspoken is a game I want it to be good, but I haven't been completely won over yet. I think a lot of that has to do with just optimization, where it looks chunky frame rate wise.
Yeah, there's just things that look rough. I don't know why I get such an Oblivion vibe from it.
I think it's just the brightness. you know, the
Maybe.
bloominess, the bloom or whatever. Uh,
And like
but
the
I get,
way
you know,
magic gets done.
I think the
I don't know.
color tones and everything. I think you're onto something there, though. I think that just the art direct, like not main art, but like it's just sort of like the general tone and vibe with the color direction feels. I can definitely see how you could
Elder
pull that out.
Scrollsy.
It is luminous. It's using their engine. It, yeah, I don't know. Like it's weird because you've got the Legacy of Kain / Uncharted writer and the guy who wrote Walking Dead game season 1 and Rogue One movie on board for the script, but like everything we've heard just kind of sounds like, but that's trailers, you know, everything we've heard just kind of sounds like generic trailer shit, you know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Dialogue wise, like it's supposed to be an isekai, meaning like it's about a New Yorker who gets sucked into a fantasy world, which nobody's happy with, except Japan because they eat this shit up for some reason.
huh.
I
Um,
don't
I do
I don't
think
know.
like the magic combat looks cool.
Yeah, I like the idea that they're like we're not doing melee combat. Everything's gonna be magic based. Everything was gonna so we want to have a lot of different like magical abilities and stuff. Okay, cool. It just it's funny because here we are this many years later, even this many years after Final Fantasy 15 with the same engine, and it's still giving issues.
Yeah, I
With
guess we'll just have to wait and see really on that one.
I want it to be good, but like I don't feel like I know GameSpot got an exclusive where they got to show off more of the spells, like you know, piece by piece, break it down footage wise. But I'm like, okay, what I'm interested in with Forspoken is what is the gameplay loop? You know,
Hmm.
what is the sort of progression system design on it? You know, they've thrown the word open world around, but that doesn't mean anything to me anymore. Um,
Well, everything's going open world.
yeah, for me,
Um,
I'm like, how is progression handled? How is the loop handled? Like, you know, what is the gameplay loop? How is that going to go? You know,
hmm.
because like 15 is a little scatterbrained with the way it handles it. You know, it's open world and then it becomes completely linear by the end. Um, and this game having so you know such you know heavy you know you're getting big writers coming in and the Legacy of Kain series and the Uncharted series especially, and of course Walking Dead because it's a point and click. Those are extremely linear, narratively driven experiences.
Yeah.
So how is that going to translate to quote unquote open world? Is it really open world? Is it not open world? Like we just say it's open world. Like, and how do you? And if it is open world, how do you manage story flow and stuff? So there's a lot of like just for me, there's a lot of stuff that's just kind of like up in the air that I'm like,
Well, campaign missions themselves may be very linear, you know, and less
well, when you say open
exploratory.
world, does that mean you could just go wander off to like you know the villain's lair on right at the get go kind of thing? So I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of things that I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. It's just yeah, we'll.
I think we're gonna see more of it, and
Yeah,
I genuinely
obviously,
hope that they get the rough, choppy frame rate down, stuff like that. You know,
if
general
you can,
polish. We'll
if you
see.
can make the gameplay fun and good and exciting, and if just using the magic is fun and not choppy and not cumbersome, it may not matter too much what else the rest of the game is like or what you do, just as long as it's
Yeah.
fun to move around in that world. Is it fun to travel around? Is it fun to use ability like magic abilities to travel to and traverse? Is it fun to engage in combat? You can nail that down. The rest kind of will fall into place, I feel.
I
So
an odd like it's not really a nitpick because it's not really a complaint. We don't have it yet. But the way the camera looks in the trailer makes me feel like doing the magic and the combat's going to be clunky. You know in a third person shooter when like it goes into that really close up over the shoulder for like zoom in aiming.
yeah, yeah.
Um a lot of the combat moments looked like it had that, and I'm sure that's just
Mhm.
like a for whatever spell you're doing, you know, just like in a third person shooter, but because the movement, a lot of the movement that they showed is like that, you don't really necessarily get a feel for actual movement in the game. Maybe
Yeah.
I gotta rewatch it, but like a lot of it, it seems like it just anytime it actually cuts into gameplay, it's in that camera. And
Right. Yeah.
once we see more of it, we'll know. But overall, I'm optimistic for the game. I think it'll be cool, especially with that lineup of writers. I guess hate's a strong word, but like Forspoken, that kind of title and shit like that. The same way I felt about Babylon's Fall
Fall.
and like titles like that are just like really over the top. I said this when I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but I said this when they first talked about Horizon Zero Dawn, where I was just like, Horizon Zero Dawn. Yeah, where it's just over the top
well,
title.
It's like we gotta make it epic sounding. It's gotta sound epic. It's
Yeah.
gotta sound epic, sound important.
Well, so Horizon Zero Dawn is like epic but futuristic because they tagged Zero Dawn and Horizon, Forspoken is like kind of the same idea where it's like we need an epic fantasy title. It can't be foretold. It's Forspoken.
It's got to have a medieval fantasy-ish sound to it.
Yeah, I don't know why that's. I know that's nitpicky. I know that like that makes me sound like a douche.
Oh, hey, but I mean, people are still complaining about like the name Triangle Strategy.
Yeah,
fair. Octopath Traveler. We're like, what? They're like, because they were introduced as project development names, and they're like, nah, it's just the name.
It's just the name. But let's talk about something simpler. Something we got to see way more gameplay of. Something we know it's gonna be exactly what they showed. Gundam Evolution.
Yeah, call a Gundam.
Call a Gundam. Gundam Nation.
I honestly just kind of feel bad for this game because I see what they're doing here. Because one of the most popular games in Japan right now is Gundam Battle Versus, which is an arena, third-person arena combat shooter, melee and shit, whatever, third-person arena team-based combat in Japan, huge, right? Kind of dominates the scene. They're obviously not really doing anything out here, so they're like, well, what do we do for America? Like, we got this fucking big ass online, team-based game that's huge in Japan. What do we got to do for America? I know, Call of Duty.
It's got to be guns.
Gundam,
which,
and it looks fine actually. Like the actual game looks fine. It's just, man, I mostly just feel bad for it because I'm like,
I don't know that it's
I don't know how many
well.
people. Yeah, I don't know how many people who are not into Gundam, which is not a ton of people in America. I don't know how you're gonna get. I don't know how many of those people you're gonna get super excited. I mean, they'll get it maybe just because it's like I want to support Gundam,
Yeah, I grew up watching that shit on Toonami.
Less about them and more about the people who know nothing about Gundam, the people who are completely, the vast majority of people. I don't know how you're going to win anyone over into it.
I don't think you are, because here's the thing. It didn't look bad, but it had that, I don't know, free-to-play look in some case. You know what I'm talking about? Like that, not all free-to-play games have this look, but like a lot of free-to-play games have that, like, there's just, the aesthetics have that, I don't know, cheap, quick, I guess would be the, again, it doesn't look bad, but it has that feel to it. So I feel like it's probably going to be either free to play or remarkably cheap.
Because it'll be a Namco game, so they'll do both. They'll charge as much as they can,
and then you'll get different
microtransactions on top of it. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I just kind of feel bad for it because I'm like, I don't know that this is like, it's a cool idea. I actually think it's kind of a cool idea. Yeah. I don't know if it brings in any non-Gundam people though.
I sort of doubt it. But then again, didn't we say the same thing about like Dragon Ball Fighters? We were kind of like, yeah, but Dragon Ball's huge in the States.
Dragon Ball is very big.
People fucking love Dragon Ball here.
I don't know. I don't know if we ever did. I don't know if we ever did say that. It kind of Dragon Ball and putting it in Marvel versus Capcom style gameplay always seemed like a great idea.
Yeah, it's a win.
That's a total win. Like Call of Duty people are just kind of like, they just want Call of Duty. It feels so late to the game to like, hey, let's make a Gundam first-person shooter. Sure, I guess, whatever. Like,
well, the Gundam Virtuon game you were talking about made me like kind of like, oh, that does sound cool. And then you're like, it's not here, and I'm like, all right.
Yeah, I don't think
Gundam Evolution is the best we could do.
Pretty much. I think we got one of the like, but they're on like Battle versus 2 or something. Like we're just way behind. I think I don't know. Maybe someone like, no, it released in America. Did it? Okay. Uh,
No money
but
went
yeah,
behind it.
nothing. So that happened, I guess, in the state of play.
Yeah, they're so. I think I said this to you before we started recording, where it was just like, it's interesting to me what I actually cared about, like the things that there's only a couple games that really piqued my interest.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously one of them for nostalgia reasons, it pulled on my nostalgia nuts was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection. Probably gonna be cool. And you said they're gonna have like online for it.
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is great. If it doesn't have online, what's the point? Because okay, so all 13 OG like old school Konami games are in this package. All the Game Boy, all the NES, all the Genesis, Super Nintendo, and the 2 arcade games.
It's an insane package, yeah.
Big ass package, and apparently that includes Tournament Fighters, which is kind of a big deal. And yeah, that's something like they said some of them will have online. So I imagine the Game Boy games probably not. There's no need to. Neither like the first NES game either. It's all because they're all single player.
But any of the ones that are co-op or versus,
Yeah, you kind of need that, right? Like, I could understand if maybe the NES arcade game doesn't have online because what, like when you have the full 4-player arcade game, why would you even care if? I can kind of see that, but otherwise, like, yeah, like the big one is the fact that it will have online gameplay for Tournament Fighters for Super NES. That's pretty big.
finally the fighting game we've all been waiting for.
Yes. And of course, getting the arcade games back, but also including the Super NES and NES versions of the arcade. It's $40.
That's pretty good though. 13 fucking
Yeah.
good.
Digital Eclipse is doing it. I'm like, okay, this is really cool. They're doing all 13 original Konami games. Do I get my collection of 10 Tiny Toon games now from Konami?
Never.
When that HBO Max reboot series comes around.
You will never fucking get it. You'll never get it.
Shut up. Like, when that HBO series comes around, am I going to get my 10 Tiny Toon games collected? And people are going to be like, 10? I'm like, yes. Konami made 10 Tiny Toon games from 8 to 16-bit era.
I wonder how they convinced them to let them do this.
Who, the Ninja Turtles one?
Yeah, like how, because Konami.
Well, I mean, Nickelodeon is in the credits on the trailer, so I'm like, okay, it must have obviously been like someone at Viacom or Paramount, I guess, as they go by now. I think they dropped Viacom, which is kind of probably was just like, we should release these old games as a collection. They're like, who made them? Well, Konami made all the old ones, and they probably just called up Konami and be like, we want to release all the old games as a collection. It'd be interesting to see who came to who, but
they called them up and were like, come on, for just a long time. I don't
think Konami really gives a shit one way or the other. I mean, again, it's being made by a Western company is doing the release port or whatever.
Yeah, it's basically just free licensing money from Konami.
Yeah, for them, it's like, okay, we get to do another collection of old shit and don't have to lift a finger? Great.
I love fucking money.
Yes.
But that pulled right on the nostalgias, and I'm excited about that. Gotta be honest, can't even remember what Gigabash was.
That was like the game that looked like a lot like War of the Monsters on PS2.
Okay. Yeah, I completely forgot about that.
Well, I mean, it just kind of came and went in the direct. It was like not highlighted much at all.
It was very quick.
Yeah, and then there's a relaunch, if you will, of the arena-based JoJo Fighter from Namco, CyberConnect 2.
The All-Star Battle R.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be the PS3 game with all the DLC added. Because it's actually
the one you're most excited about.
It's an old game, actually. I mean, it looks nice, but like whatever. I guess we'll see. It really doesn't. I mean, it's really going to depend on how's the online going to be. Because it's cool that they're like, hey, we got 50 characters in the game. Cool. Is the online going to be worth a shit? If not,
I guess we'll find out. You skipped over the only other game that I really found myself interested in. I know it's not a new announcement, but Trek to Yomi kind of looked interesting.
Apparently that's coming to Game Pass.
What? Well, then never mind. I am excited. I guess I will be playing that.
It looked dope, and I was sitting there, I'm like, this looks indie. I get like indie vibes, and sounds like it's Devolver Digital. I'm like, that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Well, it looks more. It's got more Kurosawa vibes than
Yeah.
Ghost of Tsushima does.
Well, it looks like Ghost of Tsushima and Limbo had a baby.
Yeah, yeah, freaky angry baby. Yeah. So that was that's probably the main game that I'm like, oh, I'm interested in.
Hmm.
Returnal Ascension. If you loved Returnal, I think this is just more of that. You're gonna get more of that. You're gonna love that.
Get a survival tower and you get co-op campaign. And it's free.
Yeah,
It's a free update, so
that's cool
it's
as
coming
hell,
out
man.
really soon. That's great. Kind of weird that Sony held the info on this, like it's going to March 22nd. I'm like, why did Sony decide to hold off on telling anyone about it until like 10 days before it came? I don't know.
Because they were barely making 20 minutes on this fucking thing, all right? They needed everything they could get.
I suppose so.
I don't remember the Dio Field Chronicle off the top of my head.
Oh, that's the XCOM, the Square
That's
the
right.
Square Enix XCOM looking game, where they're like, again, here's another weird like nondescript medieval European fantasy setting. You know, two countries at war, and a third one getting involved, and blah 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 blah. Whatever. There's actually the only funny thing to note about this is there was a fuck up on the American website where it said Platinum was making it, but it's because someone just literally copy pasted the template from Babylon's Falls website.
Oof.
And made another website for Dio Field Chronicle.
As a side note, do you think that Babylon's Fall has hurt Platinum's reputation?
It depends on who you are. I mean, it hurts its reputation in a way, but it's like it's kind of like unfairly because like they're making the game Square Enix paid them to make.
Are they?
And it's the game Platinum kind of wants to make themselves. Like they wanted to get into this. Square was willing to pay them for one. Like Platinum wanted to expand into live services, and Square Enix was about the live. Has been all about the live services. We got a lot of live service games. We definitely want to make live service. We'll pay you to like make a live service. It was kind of like they had similar goals, but it's not like Platinum didn't fund the game themselves. It's the game Square wanted them to make.
No, that's fair. The live service, I'm all about that. That's all I ever wanted. That's all I ever wanted. We should kiss.
I need it to be a failure so that it sends a fucking message to both of them.
You want a Platinum game to fail.
I do.
I never thought I'd hear the day.
I don't want them to go down this path. I don't want them to go into a live services game development model. If it's like I don't want them to fail, but it's like if they're so fucking determined to like pivot their company towards this as the future, then it's like then I need this to fail. Like if you won't figure this out on your own beforehand, then I need this to fail. You know, it's like I need to rub your nose in your own shitty idea.
In 326 episodes, never ever have you ever said anything but love for Platinum.
Well,
but today's the day you're like, no, they must fail. They must learn their lesson.
They must learn their lesson. They must not succeed with live services. Live services must fail itself.
The vengeance of an angry god. I don't want to drown the world, but they gotta learn.
They gotta learn.
Yeah, but what about that guy who doesn't even know there is a god?
Well, here's the really shitty thing, and here's a really shitty thing about Babylon's Fall, and this really isn't Platinum's fault at all. This is lay the biggest blame on Square for this. It's a $60 game with a battle pass and with a whole store of cosmetics and things to buy at $60. It's a full price game with a battle pass. There's a free one and a premium one you can buy. So you can buy the game, and you can buy a battle pass, and you can buy level skips and experience, dumps and all this other shit. It is a microtransaction riddled game, as if it were a free-to-play title, but also charging you a $60 entrance fee. This has to fail.
I think it's going to.
Well, I think it already has. But this is the part where I'm like, yes, this is all Square Enix's fault. Platinum didn't get to choose the distribution method. Platinum doesn't choose the price of the game. Like, they made the store and they made the cosmetics, because that's what they were ordered to do, because that is part of the agreement of the game they made with the contract with Square Enix. But Square is the one who decided, yes, charge $60 and fill it top to bottom with microtransaction shit like it was Warzone.
Do you think?
So
Do you think they were just like, I don't know, cartoonishly, villainously rubbing their hands together, all excited, and then the
someone at Square
backlash,
probably was.
the backlash started, and they're like, "Fuck."
It's
And oh
they
fuck,
probably look like that. It probably is like that Blizzard guy at BlizzCon where he's just. Remember when we were talking about that, where he's just kind of like we have no plans to put Diablo Immortal on PC, and then everyone just starts booing him, and he's just like, "Ooh," like,
yeah, the shock of a person who has no idea.
yeah.
Yeah, man, that's amazing.
That the same thing, same incident as the time. Don't you all have phones? But yeah, like you said that, and it just looked like he sharted in the middle of a church sermon.
Sometimes it's easy to forget that, like, truly it is easy to become disconnected from what your audience wants because you're like inundated. Like, have you ever noticed comedians when they are like big comedians, when they get to make a movie the way they want it, it's usually like really weird, awkward humor that like doesn't really play well for mass audiences and shit. And you're kind of like, how the fuck did they do this? They're such great comedians. And it's like, well, when all of your friends are comedians, the standard comedy doesn't make you laugh. Like, you get more and more niche and fucking weird.
It's like, okay, you don't realize that what makes you laugh is the inside jokes between you and a bunch of friends.
Yeah.
No one else is in on those inside jokes.
And this is what that is, where it's like developers or publishers who get disconnected from their audience and what their audience wants. And then they say some shit like that thinking it's, not a big deal at all, get booed, and they're like, but I don't understand why you're booing me. Like they just stepped in a giant pile of shit.
This is like Bob Chapek's entire life since he took over as CEO.
Oof, fuck, he's having rough times. People are calling him out left and right.
You know what? He brought it on himself. So
yeah, that Star Wars hotel is oof.
It's something.
Speaking of woof, Valkyrie Elysium, the last game from the Direct. Or not Direct.
I was just kind of like, what
play.
the fuck same thing? I was like, yeah, and I was like, oh my god, what the fuck is I have a little tiny bit more hope. So we found out after the fact that the developer is Soleil, who made the Samurai Jack game, which was excellent.
Okay.
And they worked on Travis Strikes Back as well. That Samurai Jack game is really good. So I kind of have a little more hope. It is still fucking ugly though. Like,
it looks a little bit shovelware-y.
Oh yeah. I can't imagine it has much of a budget at all. Oh my god! Like, I swear to God, the PS2 game looks better. And I'm not even saying that as hyperbole. Like, this game is ugly. This game is ugly artistically and technically. And I was saying, on the stream, which has been delayed because of copyright issues. We'll see if I can get those resolved for that video, but I'll say it again here. I don't hear I don't hear anyone complaining about Elden Ring, but you know what I do hear? I hear a lot of people complaining about Elden Ring. So, and one of their complaints is that I see people constantly complaining about people saying Elden Ring looks like a PS3 game. I don't actually see anyone saying it does. I just see people complaining that people are saying that it does. This game truly looks like a PS3 game at best.
I mean, it's a PSP game. This
really looks like a PS3 game, and not even like a high-end PS3 game, but like a sort of like AA budget, middle of the road PS3 game.
Well, you know how like a cheap Western game, cheap Western games always tend to look the same. They always have like that Skyrim look.
Yeah.
Like Skyrim, not cheap Japanese games always have like that cheaper anime style. Like it's always the same. Like so many games you wouldn't even know that they're different unless the titles, are right there. And I think it suffers from that. So even if it is really good, it's gonna suffer from that. I don't know. It's not one that I care
And
about.
it's so like it's a sort of resurgence of a long gone RPG series, Valkyrie Profile,
Yeah.
which was not turn based, but it was quasi turn based. It was like what they did for Indivisible. I don't know if anyone remembers that game before their studio head ousted himself. Whoop.
Ooh.
um, but yeah, like it had a really interesting combat system that was still some semi turn based. This is fully real time. This is an action. And then I found out, okay, it's Salil, so it's like the guys who it's ex Ninja Gaiden. It's all ex Ninja Gaiden devs.
Yeah. Cool.
So that's cool. That's cool. But man, does it look.
Well, I think something interesting about like, and I don't know that it's like Japanese games that do this in particular, but like a lot of Japanese developers seem to really love Norse mythology or like twisting Norse mythology.
Sure do, and I'm fine with that. Whatever.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what? Honestly, like I think we all do because like MCU is like its own wacky sci-fi version of Norse mythology, and
Oh yeah. Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
God of War is the same way.
I think,
Like with Norse, like it's not like super accurate in God of War either.
and Norse mythology has had like kind of a resurgence in popularity where like everything's
Hmm.
Vikings and fucking
Yeah.
um but I often wonder like how did Japanese developers get enamored with Norse mythology to begin with? Because like there's a bunch of anime that this isn't
So
I
someone in comments will say it's Vinland Saga.
I-
Uh,
well yeah Vinland Saga is supposed to be really good, um but like I wonder how I'm often interested in how cultures get obsessed, like culture wide, with something, like how they, seemingly culture wide love Norse mythology. How we culture wide, like there's a large majority of our culture that loves like samurai and,
yeah.
or just like Japanophile to some extent.
Obviously,
Um,
we made Ghost of Tsushima out here.
yeah, I often kind of wonder like how does that happen? Like how does that take root to where an entire industry makes all sorts of shit, that is in some way. Yeah, because you could also say like, oh, Valkyrie Profile and Valkyrie Elysium, like they're using those names and that mythology purely because like the words sound cool.
Yeah,
I know that like English words in general, like in Japanese music, will sometimes get picked purely because of how they sound with like Japanese words. Like they'll randomly switch to English that like flows well with it. Um, but I don't know. I always found that really interesting. I'm sure there's got to be like papers done on this. Someone's
yeah.
studied this. But it's always something kind of cool because they talk about Ragnarok. Ragnarok is used as a motivator in so many games that aren't even about Norse mythology. Like they'll just use the word Ragnarok.
Ragnarok and Yggdrasil.
Yeah, get
They do love that word.
fucking all the time, right? Um, I don't know. That's kind of cool. Um, but I was wondering if you were going to be interested in that game.
More now that I know that okay, so Leo's doing it. It still looked rough. The frame rate looked like shit. The graphics obviously looked like shit. Like,
it looks low budget.
you know what? And you know, Samurai Jack was low budget too, and it pulled it off. Like, it ended up being like, God, this game. You know, it granted Samurai Jack has a very simplistic art style to begin with,
Hmm.
so it looked a lot more faithful right off the bat, and didn't have to worry too much about it. But like,
Well, it's simplistic, but it was also kind of a groundbreaking art style at the time, right? For
yeah,
cartoons
yeah.
or
So
animation. Yeah.
and not so much like the style necessarily, but a lot of just the cinematography in Samurai Jack, which translates a little bit to the game. But like you watch the show, and I'm like, there's just a bunch of film nerd shit in in that
Yeah.
in that series. Like they're like, yeah, we really wanted to do an episode that was all like Sergio Leone esque. But this one is all, of course you have like Kurosawa style episodes, but then like you get a
Got it.
lot of like you get a lot of 70s like standout filmmaker things like I want to say it's French Connection.
Hmm.
What was the film that had like that crazy car chase on the hood and stuff like that?
On the hood? Well, I don't know. I mean, crazy car chase in the 70s would be Bullet.
Maybe it's Bullet. And they do stuff where like they cut the frame into like really weird long like panels and angles,
Oh,
like
yeah.
certain other types of films. Just that was that film. But anyways, like the art style in this game is not looking great. Like they got the character designer from Nier Automata doing that, but I mean, like the in-game art models and assets look bunk. Like I don't know, like.
Yeah, how far is it from getting released? I didn't see
Well,
a
that's the
release date.
crazy thing. Everything was like, except the dinosaur game was like 2022. Everything.
Wow. Wow. Exoprimal, the most finished looking game, won't be out for 3 years.
Well,
And
yeah,
everybody will have forgotten.
well, that's the other crazy thing too, is because Valkyrie Profile was originally done by Tri-Ace, who kind of had a rough couple of years after the 360. And they're doing Star Ocean 6 that got announced at that state of play at the end of last year.
Yeah.
Which also looked pretty rough, like, from an optimization standpoint. And that's also supposed to come out this year. So I guess Tri-Ace can't do Valkyrie Profile and Star Ocean at the same time, even though those are their original IPs that they made. But like neither one of them, they're doing Star Ocean 6 and Valkyrie Profile or Valkyrie Elysium. Neither one look very polished, like at fucking all. Part of me almost wonders, like, okay, even if it doesn't look graphically amazing, what if you guys just put it on PS5 just so you don't have to worry about optimization? Like, it'll still be ugly and people still call foul, but like,
At least it'll run.
at least it'll run smooth. Like if it's kind of come to a point where it's like we don't have the time or budget to optimize it for either system. I'm like, well, how about you dump the PS4 completely? Don't worry about making it look great. Just make it run good, even if it is ugly.
Nobody can get a fucking PS5 though, still. So that's kind of
therein lies the real issue.
Yeah.
Therein lies the actual problem. Because I think even Exoprimal was it Exoprimal cross gen?
I don't think so, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Huh.
You notice a lot of Square Enix games, fantasy RPG, like they all have similar art styles now.
Yeah.
I guess they've kind of always had the same art styles, but for some reason, and this might be like nostalgia goggles, but I used to remember like every Final Fantasy had like a vastly different feel. But then now I guess I'm thinking about it.
Oh, no, it is. You're right. Sorry. I looked it up. Yeah, it's Steam, Xbox One, Series S, X, PS4, PS5 for Exoprimal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Part of me really wishes, just like, I don't know, like, especially when you were getting into 2023, and part of me is like, can we like cut the cord with last gen?
Well, I mean, if we didn't have scalpers and shortages and, crypto miners and shit like that.
I know.
But yeah, my point on Final Fantasy is like, do you remember that 7, 8, 9? Like, yeah, they had similar looks because they reused the same kind of characters.
Yeah, they were very different looking games.
Yeah, right. And now it just seems like they're all fantasy RPG anime. I don't know why that.
It feels kind of like the anime industry as a whole, where everything kind of homogenized into one thing. Where like basically like there's a fandom that'll gobble up everything, like we do merchandise and limited edition wise, and so we're just going to focus heavily into that, like the highest paying crowd. I feel that like in a way where, because some of like the more prominent like anime creators were like, I don't remember where or how or whatever. I think they were talking to someone who worked on Bebop or whatever, and they're like, "What the fuck happened? Why is the anime industry like this?" Because Japan's bubble economy like fully crashed by the 90s, and they were like, The only things that were going to get greenlit, they wanted a green light or even work on, were things that they knew people would buy the expensive, limited edition versions of. And frankly, it just became like the biggest payers were like, the uber otakus, the body pillow hugging people. And like, so everything kind of just catered harder and harder to them because they were like the only ones who, that was guaranteed money.
Poor body pillows.
Like, well, it's business. It's not personal, it's business. It's like no one wants to take a gamble on something that might be a breakout hit when it's like, well, or we could guarantee some shit if we just make some like, slapdash like titty anime and put it on a body pillow. You want to make money, or do you want to like go down, or you want to go down with like, a visionary that flopped, like
SDTA, slapdash titty anime. That's I mean, if we ever start doing, I don't know, reviews on movies and TV, we'll have to have a whole section just all about slapdash titty animes.
Oh God, I'm sure there's plenty of people who could build us a list too.
All right, we're gonna end this episode on not a slapdash titty anime, but on a TV. Did you watch the Obi-Wan trailer?
I did.
It's a teaser. How is the teaser 2 minutes long? Teasers used to be like 15 seconds.
Yeah, well.
And now it's like, this is a teaser trailer.
It's funny how everyone's losing their mind, and I'm just kind of like, it looks like every other
Star Wars show so far.
What? They're like, because it has Duel of Fates.
Yeah,
they put Duel of Fates. They put the whatever the other hero song from the new trilogy in. And I'm just like, what?
I mean, Duel of Fates is so good.
God damn it, you people are easy to please.
I think also it's Ewan McGregor who was probably the best part of the prequels.
Sure, but I have a huge issue in general with the idea that we're bringing Hayden Christensen back for their rematch. I'm like, why the fuck are they rematching? Like, 4 is the rematch. The fuck?
Yeah, isn't that the fucking point? I don't know.
And people are like, well, it's only 10 years after. There's still going to be another, like, 10 or 20 years between this and episode. Fuck off. Like,
I don't know.
Every fucking day, every goddamn day of these people's lives has to be chronicled and filmed and written about and shown in some fashion or form. Like,
the best Star Wars content.
We cannot have mystery left in this franchise. God forbid.
The best Star Wars content they've put out so far is that like anime anthology.
Oh, Visions?
Yeah, that's probably
some of them.
I mean, not all of them, sure.
Some of them are awful.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair though, what bottom of the barrel now has to be the Boba Fett show?
I don't know. I watched it and I was okay enough with it.
It was,
but I think my expectations are kind of like shot
super low. I mean, I guess if your expectations are a desert, even a little bit.
I never even liked the character anyway, so it's kind of like whatever. Watching any of the shit you get through to me is about as interesting as it's ever going to be.
Well, I have this problem where it's like, and I'm sure a lot of people say this about all sorts of TV shows now. A lot of TV shows now just feel like someone took a 80-minute movie idea and just like stretched it. And so every episode feels like it's 20 minutes of bullshit with like 5 or 6 minutes of something interesting.
Red Letter Media was talking about this with Picard, and they're like, I didn't hate the first episode of season 2, but it feels like every show we watch now, it's like watching the first 6 minutes of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not, it's you can't even judge a TV show now episode by episode now, because it's like it just feels like you're just watching 10 minutes of a feature film.
Yeah, and so Boba Fett felt like that real hard. Mandalorian got away with some of that because it had, some real Western vibes, and so slow pace sort of covered up a lot of that
in the first season, but like. It's funny to me. The funny to me because the second season just kind of like just dove headfirst into fan wankery. It feels like,
I don't know.
The thing is though, like people liked it. Like there's there's an art to like serving you reheated food. And that's
Okay.
basically what basically Disney is now, especially with Star Wars. Is like there's an art to serving reheated food, and it's real easy to mess that up, and you can tell it's reheated food. But if they do it right, like for most people, Mandalorian season 2, it's reheated food, but you don't know it's reheated food. It feels great, tastes great, but it's reheated food. And Boba Fett is like someone not good at reheating food, and you basically get day old mac and cheese.
Ugh.
So,
And then the shits later.
but like at the end of the day, like none of these, I don't know. Like Star Wars died for me like pretty hard at Last Jedi. Honestly, I was kind of I was kind of like repeating my denial stage of Phantom Menace with Force Awakens, but I already had like sort of like shaky feelings about it. I'm like, it's good, but it's a little. But I was like, it's a little too. No, fuck. I was like, it's a little too safe. But nah. Now it's just kind of like, no. Like they've burnt it. They have burnt that star. That star has basically turned into a black hole now.
Yeah, so you're just like you're over Star Wars content.
I was over Star Wars really with the prequels, and I thought maybe with Disney this is going to be a chance to sort of revitalize it. And you kind of get your hopes up big with Episode 7, and you're like, okay, this isn't so bad. It's a nice sort of like return to your roots kind of thing. But then you kind of realize that's all it is. It's reheated food.
That's how we end the episode, is with reheated food.
And that's how it just kind of it's reheated food, and then like because that's 7 is reheated food. Like let's be fucking honest. And then everything else is the same thing, but everyone kind of like tries to tell you it's not. Like especially Rian Johnson. It's like it's not reheated. It's a bold no. It's the same fucking shit. You just flipped like the put like where you put the stuff. It's like it's still mostly the same fucking shit. Like so,
yeah.
And then he drives me nuts because he thinks he's doing something original. I'm like, no, you're not, and you're no one. And I think at this point it's just clearly established no one will ever be allowed to do anything truly original with Star Wars. And Visions is the closest thing to being something truly original.
There's a couple of those that I was like, I would watch an entire show of this.
Yeah.
The Ronin Samurai guy, the
Ronin Samurai one's really good. So it's like, okay, these work pretty well. Like it's not great, but like the one where they build the lightsabers on like the little asteroid hovering the planet thing, like that one's not bad either. That one's not bad. Like so there's some ideas that are not bad. Like you definitely can tell the more creative stuff. And and I'm not backing George Lucas at all because his prequels showed he can't write. But he was right in a sense where people talked to him after the buyout, and he was like, because he's like, oh, they dumped my script, they threw out everything I told them about, and he's like, it would have been a very, very different movie from any of the other Star Wars. No one would have liked it, but it would have been very, very different. So he kind of said that, it's sort of like, just sort of like, man, well, what I would have done would have been crazy and weird and different. Nobody would have liked it, but it would have been different. I'm like, he's right. He's right about every part of that statement. If he stuck around and was making, 7, 8, 9 himself, it would have been very different. So it wouldn't have been reheated food. It would still be terrible. Probably. But he would have been right. So
if he wouldn't have been the person that was in charge of casting
or directing,
or
script writing,
if he would have just done like the story and then producing,
just the producing and the story by,
and then if he would have hired the same director for all 3 films for like some continuity of vision, maybe even in ballsy, maybe even the same writer for all 3. Like really Peter Jackson that shit.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like we kind of had that with Kasdan and Kurtz. Kind of burned both of them off, like because he really vetoed a lot of their wants with Jedi. Like
well, Kasdan's a really depressing dude, so like I can see why he shot some of that down.
Well, that's why 7 feels like it's a sequel to the Jedi film he never got to make.
Yeah.
So yeah, because like that's a lot of thing people probably don't know is like what Kurtz and Kazan wanted to do is they wanted to have kind of a downer ending for Jedi. They wanted to kill Han. They wanted the Empire to fall, but sort of like barely, like more or less just like okay, they won it, but what cost? And like Leia was gonna have like basically like be handed like a job that was like an impossible to manage task. And Luke was basically going to go wander off, like basically was going to get disillusioned with everything and disappear, and try to go find himself somewhere in the galaxy. No one would know where he was going to go. Like he was going to fade away, kind of like he was just going to vanish.
Yeah.
And that's when and lo and behold, when they bring him back for episode 7, Luke's a missing hermit. Leia's basically at odds with the New Republic, and we like, well, Han's alive. We'll fix that. We'll fix that real quick. So,
yeah, I guess he got everything he wanted.
He got everything he wanted with 7 in 6 with 7. After finally reheating A New Hope.
So I guess that's the moral of this episode is reheated food.
And like and it's like, well, you couldn't do any better. I guess not. Maybe not. We'll never really know. I have my own ideas. Maybe
Everybody does.
Maybe I should say just so it's like it's not just like, oh, I'm just complaining and not offering. I hate that too. My idea is that and I've told you this. Like what would you do for 7, 8, 9? And I'm like, okay, well, what I would do is I would have the galaxy kind of in a very tumultuous state where the inner systems are stabilized with the New Republic, but the middle to outer rim, everything, most of the galaxy is kind of like it's lawless. Like what happened with the fall of the Empire was the New Republic had nowhere near the manpower or equipment to govern the entire galaxy like the Empire did, and everything fell into a state of lawlessness. And then you have about 5 or so rival syndicates, or just a number of syndicates, just kind of like vying for power in this vacuum. And I would have had like the main characters be someone who grew up on an outer rim planet, not Tatooine.
Not Tatooine?
Not Tatooine. And I would have done something like that where basically like there's one of the 2 leads would actually be kind of disillusioned, kind of angry with the New Republic because they're in a situation where they grew up in a basically a lawless planet that basically was a very kill or be killed kind of situation, everyone for themselves, because once the Empire left, everything just became a weird power grab. And so have the crux of the plot and kind of being about that, more about that aspect of it, and
Star Wars Warlords,
right? So Star Wars, but it's like it's all kind of how like you go to whole swaths and area of the world where there's smaller pockets where it's like there's no domineering force, right? You just you go to play, use our own history as a good example of kind of like when you don't, when you have basically everyone's kind of like vying for power, kind of like well, that's probably not a good example, but either way, point just kind of being like, imagine basically a completely destabilized region, where it's just kind of like, oh, there was a governing body here, and then that governing body collapsed. And then what happens in that situation? But put it on obviously on a galactic scale.
Yeah, sort of the obvious choice. Or you could have come in on the second trilogy could have just been like an open actual civil war.
Yeah, like and you could even that could even be like part of the backdrop too, where just doing this idea that like it's not going to have stormtroopers and TIE fighters, or maybe one of the factions is like a sort of like maybe some leftover far out.
Well, there would be a shitload of Empire remnants, like there
right
would be a ton
so
of them.
maybe there would be some sort of like faction, like smaller group of that, maybe that'd be there, but that wouldn't be the focus. You're not going to have a whole bunch of stormtroopers, you're not going to have TIE fighters, you're not going to have like some evil guy in a black costume with a mask on who can use magic, and then they make some big planet killing fortress that they got to blow up. Like that
Darth
should never,
Broder.
right? Like none of that should ever happen. Like it should all be about sort of just the sort of like ramifications of that. And then, for me, I've always never been that interested in the Force because like Lucas kind of like whatever was interesting or mysterious about the Force, Lucas killed in the prequels. And I'm not even talking about midichlorians. I'm talking about the fact that the Jedi is this weird cult that basically press gangs children into being in their weird sexless cult.
Yeah, no, I mean the prequels did a lot of damage for the mystique.
Yeah, they sure did. So
Yeah.
if anything, it should just be sort of like Luke's going around. He's just looking for anyone Force sensitive. And he's just trying to be, and he basically like, he gets old, obviously, because it'll be later, but like, it should just been like, he tried to be as much of a goodwill ambassador as he could, like put in what they said in episode 4, like, Guardians of Peace throughout the galaxy. He was just trying to be a peacekeeper throughout there and
yeah,
kind of like just have it be a war of ideals, because like the original trilogy is very basic. Big evil empire, rebels. And then, you overthrow the tyrannical government, and then you have to deal with all the ramifications of having a splintered system. That would have been interesting to me. That's what I would have done with it. I would have had the main characters kind of have like, whoever your two protagonists, they would have been rivals in a sense where like one is kind of like believes in the ultimate good of the people, and one is kind of like, like one is like a Scolder and Molly, believer, non-believer, or optimist and a pessimist, kind of thing. Like would have done like, but like on an ideals level, like that's what I would have done.
And instead, what you get is Bob Chapek's reheated food and a very expensive hotel, and you're going to enjoy that until the next content comes out. I don't know. I to end it on my last thought is I'm still optimistic about Obi-Wan just because I want Ewan McGregor to keep working.
I think it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see either way. Mostly for Ewan.
Yeah, it's gonna be high budget.
Yeah, it's gonna be high budget. It's a limited series. Although they downscaled and sort of cut the budget on this thing multiple times. So
I guess I guess we'll see. It's really 50-50 here, and that's
we'll see because they kept cutting episodes down and stuff. So
we're leaving you with no hope.
It's not a bad thing though, because like I think as Boba Fett showed, there's definitely like whole episodes that could have been cut.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it's a short series, 8 episodes, and it didn't even need it. Where like maybe that can work in Obi-Wan's favor, where like they kept cutting down the episodes. It was the number of episodes it was going to be, and I'm like, well, does it need to be? We don't need to like drag this out more than it needs to be drug out already. Like, I feel
it's 4 episodes, and it's Act 1 is episode 1, Act 2A is episode 2, Act 2B is episode 3, and then Act 3 is episode 4. All climax, baby. Then they can finally just, instead of making the Obi-Wan movie, just, make the Obi-Wan movie. On that note, we got some patrons to thank. And on our Reheated Food episode, our patron of the week was Rocker1104. Thank you, Rocker. And our producers for this episode are The Arnett, Screwnomi, Top 35, HyperViper89, Ziggy Z, Online Persona, and Miles XVS. Thank you, dudes, and we will catch you next time.
All right, dudes.